Our fans count on us to serve up 20 fresh dashcam videos every week, and today's episode is no exception. Buckle up and brace for impact. Dennis was driving his Honda Civic down a Texas highway with his girlfriend, who was visiting from Canada, in the passenger seat. Suddenly, a semi-truck merged into the side of them, sending the car spinning out of control. Dennis said it was unfortunate that this happened while his girlfriend was visiting, but he's thankful neither of them were seriously injured. The trucker took responsibility for the collision and said he hadn't seen Dennis's Civic. He asked for a shout out for his girlfriend Jennifer, who flew home as scheduled the day after the collision. Taryn was driving his Dodge Dakota in South Dakota and was headed home from his aunt's house when the driver of a red Ford Ranger turned across the intersection from an oncoming straight-only lane. By the time Taryn noticed what was happening and slammed on the brakes, it was too late to make any difference. Both drivers pulled over, and some cops driving by noticed the wrecked vehicles and stopped to help. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. The officers cited the Ranger driver for multiple traffic violations. Taryn's pickup was totaled, but the other driver's insurance paid him enough to replace it with a Chevy Silverado. Logan was driving late one night when a black Camaro went flying past him, followed closely by a police car in pursuit. Logan estimates the Camaro was moving at around 50 miles per hour. Just a couple of minutes later, Logan came across a collision scene where the Camaro had slammed into the back of a Jeep belonging to one of Logan's friends. Logan stopped to make sure his friend was okay. Thankfully, his friend was able to walk away after, according to the police, the Camaro rear-ended his Jeep at 85 miles per hour. The police report states the Camaro reached speeds of over 100 miles per hour and the driver was intoxicated. Sadly, the Jeep is probably totaled. Logan and his friend are both just thankful he's okay. Lauren was on her way to work when she watched a Chevy Spark get rear-ended by another driver who never even tapped the brakes before the impact. Lauren suspects the driver of the red car was on their phone when they clipped the back of the Chevy, pushing it under the trailer of a semi-truck we can see earlier in the video. She gave a copy of her footage to responding police. She hasn't heard any updates, but she told us she and her boyfriend are huge fans of our videos and our merch. Thanks, you two! If you want some for yourself, the link to our merch store is in the video description. Colin was driving down an Irish highway when traffic suddenly slowed way down. As he continued, it didn't take long for him to figure out the cause of the sudden congestion. A red car on the shoulder was engulfed in flames, prompting drivers to merge right to avoid getting too close. Thankfully, the driver of the burning car could be seen at a safe distance and he appeared unhurt. Emily was coming home from work when the driver of a red hatchback made a right on red, illegal because they didn't come to a stop and wait for traffic to clear, nearly causing Emily to rear-end them. Thankfully, Emily was able to slam on the brakes while honking and avoiding a collision, but she was understandably upset at the other driver's lack of care for her safety as well as their own. Remember, in places where right turns through red lights are legal, you're still required to completely stop and wait for traffic to clear before turning. Don't turn if it will force someone else to slow down or stop. Ethan was driving one rainy day when he began approaching a red light. When he started braking, his Mazda 3 began to slide down the wet road until he rear-ended a Chevy Suburban. Ethan estimates he hit the Chevy at 30 miles per hour in spite of having the brake pedal fully held down. Thankfully, nobody was injured. When police responded, Ethan provided them with a copy of his dashcam footage. After reviewing the video, the officer determined that Ethan was at fault since the light he was approaching had been red. Sam was in a good mood on his way to a concert when the aggressive and impatient driver of a Ford Explorer started tailgating his Subaru Legacy. The Explorer driver eventually passed Sam, but they were about to get a whole lot more reckless. Farther down the road, the Explorer driver used the center turn lane to pass a whole bunch of cars at high speed. Sam told us this is the most reckless driver he's personally witnessed, and what he found particularly amusing was the presence of anti-tailgating stickers on the back of the Explorer. Remember Ryan's video we showed you in episode 78 of his friend being backed into while they were both headed to a car show? Well, his friend sent us his dashcam footage of the same incident.
Where are we going? Whoa. Whoa! He's still going back. Dude.
As far as I remember, this is the first time we've seen the same collision from multiple dashcams on this channel. Logan told us he fixed the damage to his car himself for $27 US after telling the other driver it was no big deal. Gary was making a left turn through an intersection when his view of a crossing pedestrian was obstructed by his car's A-pillar.
I'm sorry. My fault.
Gary admits this situation was his fault and is thankful the young woman in the crosswalk was paying better attention than he was. He said this experience taught him a valuable lesson about peeking around the A-pillar. Moore was headed home from work and was driving down a street he told us is notorious for collisions. He had slowed down out of an abundance of caution when he was suddenly cut off by a Dodge Avenger. Moore hit the brakes and the horn, but the other driver didn't seem to notice as she turned into the front of his Subaru BRZ. The Avenger driver admitted fault while Moore called the police to report the collision. The responding officer wrote a ticket to the Avenger driver after she told the officer she'd been distracted by her navigation system. Fixing Moore's Subaru cost $1,500 US, which the other driver's insurance paid for. Someday, Teslas will be able to drive themselves. Until then, we'll keep getting these videos sent in of Teslas behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
Kim captured this Model S driver slowly turning across lanes with no regard for other traffic. Kim stood on her brake pedal to avoid a collision while the Tesla driver seemed oblivious about what had happened. Thankfully, Kim bought her dashcam 2 months before this happened after being inspired to get one by watching our videos. Awesome! If you need a dashcam, check out the link in the description. Federico sent us the first submission from Argentina we've featured. He was in line to enter a roundabout when the driver of an Audi SUV behind him accidentally released the brake pedal before rear-ending his Renault. When Federico told the Audi driver he'd captured the collision on dashcam, she accepted fault and provided her insurance information. Fixing his Renault cost about $1,900 US. Colby was headed home after a few hours of door dashing when he turned onto a road only to be faced with an oncoming driver making an illegal pass across double yellow lines. Colby swerved to the side, allowing the oncoming driver just enough room to pass him without colliding head-on. Colby was understandably shaken up after this happened. Sammy was on his way home when the driver of the Prius ahead of him suddenly stopped for a silver car that had cut in front of him. Sammy was found responsible for the collision, and fixing his Toyota Camry took 3 weeks and $14,000 US. He made sure to inform us very clearly that he was not texting and driving when the collision occurred. Tony had just left a gas station when the driver of a white SUV made a U-turn without yielding to oncoming traffic. Tony hit the brakes and the horn to avoid a collision before continuing on his way. He told us that our channel inspired him to buy a dashcam. Awesome! Ryan installed a dashcam in his parents' Honda CR-V. One day while his dad was driving home, the dashcam captured two Subarus colliding when the driver of one made a left turn from the middle lane. Ryan contacted the local police to inform them they had footage of the collision, and an officer requested a copy. Evidently, the two Subaru drivers had had conflicting accounts, and the dashcam footage settled the investigation. Brighton was on his way home from work and hadn't even been on the road for a full minute when a Honda driver ran a stop sign and pulled out in front of him while he was going 45 miles per hour. Brighton locked up his brakes and slid to within inches of the Honda, barely avoiding a collision. The Honda driver then turned onto a different road and drove off as if they had no idea what had just happened. Willie was driving down a Texas highway late one night when he watched a minivan collide with an SUV that was stopped on the highway. It looks like the SUV had pulled in front of another car after rear-ending it, then stopped. The minivan driver didn't see the SUV and smashed into it at around 70 miles per hour, sending it spinning into the concrete barrier on the right. When the minivan finally stopped spinning, Willie pulled over on the left shoulder but couldn't reach any of the drivers to check on them. He said they appeared uninjured and he left after other drivers stopped to help. Willie told us he will be contacting the Dallas Police Department to offer them a copy of his dashcam footage to aid in their investigation of the collision. Demetrio was driving down a California highway in an apparent sea of Teslas when he spotted one that stood out from the rest. What should we call this Tesla? A Pika Chesla? Tesla Chew? I'm sure you can do better than that, so put your best name for this Model Y in the comments below. And give Demetrio's son Max a shout out while you're at it.
Wham! Bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.